And welcome back, everyone, to our next panel, which is the future of e commerce and retail. Well, really, maybe it's the present, because the concepts that we're sharing have, for the most part, already been rolled out. But the team that we've been able to assemble for all of us today, are here to raise the level of our ability to merge the merge the concepts of e-commerce and retail together. It might not be a conversation of one or the other. Perhaps the best way is both. Today we have with us, today we have with us Blake from Facebook. We'll also have Chow Louis here from Paris Jewelers. Welcome, Blake. Welcome, Chow Louis. Today we also have Doug. He'll be joining us today. Paul Gaspar from UPS, Alana from Google. Thank you, folks, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, at this time, what I'd love for you to do is introduce yourself. Alana, let's start with you.
Sure. Nice to see everybody. I'm Alana Chan. I run a global SMB marketing team at Google, where we are helping small businesses all set up on e-commerce and be successful into the digital revolution that's happening right now.
Thank you, Alana. And Paul.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Gaspar. I'm Director of Small Business at UPS Canada. Basically, just a fancy title that basically means that I work with a team of small business ambassadors to support and help startups and small businesses navigate the fun part of logistics in their business. And I enjoy that a lot because I have the opportunity not just to provide the thought leadership and advice that we have from our knowledge base, but get to learn a lot with these entrepreneurs and what it takes for them to start and grow their business.
Company like Thrillworks. Let's see what you have, Doug.
Hey, I'm Doug. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Thrillworks. We're a digital services company based out of the Toronto area. We work with large and small businesses really to help enable them to become better, leaner, and more agile organizations with regards to marketing, e-commerce, and really kind of, disrupting how they think about digital in general. So super happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And Chow, we've had the opportunity to hang out several times now. Once again, welcome from Paris Jewelers. You'll be able to hear her story woven throughout our session today. But Chow, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chow. I'm so excited to be here. I'm one of the co-owners of Paris Jewelers. We are a national retail jewelry brand with 23 stores in 4 provinces across Canada. We have a 90% female workforce. We are so passionate about celebrating customer stories through jewelry and giving back to our community.
Facebook is something that used to be just about our parents. But the ideas and strategies that you all have developed and rolled out have changed the whole dynamic and the power of commerce that empowers Facebook users. Blake, please introduce yourself, and then I'm going to pose the first question to you.
Hi, folks. Very nice to see everyone on the panel. So my name is Blake Smith. I am an industry manager for what we call our emerging disruptors and e-commerce vertical here at Facebook Canada, really supporting digital-first brands as they transform traditional industries from meal tech to health tech to e-commerce to retail, really thinking about that digital evolution as we think commerce first, especially in the world of mobile. So really excited about today's conversation and this diverse panel.
Blake, the last time we connected, you said this comment, and all you said was one letter and one number. Like, wow, it's captivating. Folks, I hadn't heard this term before, but you wanted us to consider Q5. No, wait a second. If I'm doing the math here, what is Q5 and what power is represented as far as an opportunity that we should miss out in Q5?
Yes, so I think for e-commerce and retail, obviously Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Boxing Week, this quarter is extremely important to potentially make your sales number for the year. And obviously it's been a pretty challenging year, especially from a supply chain and logistics and just generating kind of that overall revenue growth as we've seen a lot of industry changes. So Q5 is a new term, or potentially not super new term, but it's really thinking about what are you going to do post-ship, last ship date, or possibly when your store is about to close leading into kind of the holiday season around like really Christmas Day, the 25th. And what does Boxing Week look like? And I think Facebook thinks about it in many ways, but as a global organization, I think we are proud to be Canadian, and Boxing Week is actually a thing in Canada. But if you think about a lot of global marketing trends, it's not a thing. It's actually it's not a thing in the US. People don't know about the Boxing Day craziness that happens both online and offline. So really from an advertising and marketing perspective, it gives you a big opportunity. One, it's a lot less competition in the advertising auction, both on any platform. So thinking about those, call it CPM trends, less competition. A lot of people are potentially given up on the year. They got through Cyber Monday, they're exhausted. They got through last ship date, but they're absolutely exhausted. So there's less competition in the marketing space for one. Two is you have the opportunity to blow out your inventory that you potentially didn't sell through or potentially have opportunity to sell. And three, it's really all about like really thinking about new year, new you, and hitting the ground running come January 1st. Because if you think a lot about traditional marketers in the CPG space, they're just starting to plan. Hopefully everyone got a little bit towards the end there, but really the three things that I highlighted was less competition. One is inventory blowout, if you can do it and you've got inventory to sell, and then also the new year, new you, and really thinking about hitting the ground running come January. So don't give up once you're extremely tired from what the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and seasonality looks like.
Okay, and just before we throw it over to Paul real quickly here, what is a CPM trend?
Definitely in the advertising space. So that's really cost of getting into the auction from an impression standpoint. So when you're buying on our platform on an auction dynamics, and obviously anyone in the advertising space, it's we call it kind of winter is coming. It's a very, very competitive time to be in the auction on any platform. So CPMs is usually a trending benchmark to understand the cost to get on the platform and advertise.
Okay, and actually, just before we throw it to Paul, Doug, what should we be looking for when we're considering trends? What should we be considering and looking for?
Well, that's an interesting one. Like the thing that is probably the most important is looking not necessarily towards like what's happening today, but what's going to be what are we looking for tomorrow? And you can see that in kind of cultural currents that are happening throughout, different industries. I think, there's a couple things that you can do to try and figure out what those are using, especially from a digital perspective, using kind of your analytics data, collecting that data in a smart way, and then taking that data and trying to make smart projections against it. There's a lot of really great kind of technical tooling that can allow you to do that out there. And, the machine learning modeling that allows us to kind of figure out what that looks like is kind of improving every day. I think as well, you need to look to the past to understand what's going to happen in the future. And again, those kind of cultural currents or trends kind of come back around over time. So having a really good kind of strategy that looks backward as well as forward is key.
Okay, so if I were to pick up a straw and you really can't suck and blow at the exact same time. So you're asking us to look backwards and forwards at the same time to pull the right information to build forward from an e-commerce. Fascinating. Now, what data points, what analytics, can you share one or two things that a retailer should be looking at to say, hey, this is probably what I should and could evaluate?
Yeah, for sure. And again, if we're talking about like a brick and mortar retailer, we want to try and take a look at the overall kind of their path to conversion, right? So if I'm going to look at what were the activities that somebody took on their journey through to purchase, trying to connect the dots between what happened kind of online versus like, me coming into a brick and mortar store. We can look at things like advertising clicks, etc., from a digital perspective, and we can follow that through pretty easily through to conversion. But when it comes to brick and mortar, it becomes a little bit more difficult. We can use tricks like different phone numbers on ads so that we can track them through, etc. But it becomes a little bit more difficult with brick and mortar.
And for those folks who aren't familiar with ThrillWorks, what does ThrillWorks do?
Yeah, for sure. So ThrillWorks, we're a company, we work a lot in kind of the website, mobile app, and e-commerce spaces. We help companies to really kind of understand like how they can use, the right brand strategy, creative, and technology to achieve their goals. And so when we're looking at again, an example of a company that's got a brick and mortar store and they're looking to break into the digital space. We saw a lot of this during the last year where companies that were kind of maybe a little bit behind the times looking to really kind of enhance their digital presence because they were forced to, their stores were closed. We help them to build agile platforms, not the idea of like, oh, we're going to build things in sprints. We really look at building them a platform that can scale with growth over time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. And we're certainly going to circle back to both of you and Blake. Paul, Blake mentioned we got Cyber Monday coming up, right? And once we get through that, what needs to happen? Oh, we got to ship all this product that everybody bought. What timelines should we be working against then to also ensure that we can satisfy Boxing Day purchases? How do we get everything delivered to little Johnny's stocking so he can have his presents to unwrap? How does that work from a timing perspective?
Yeah, I mean, and the best thing really to do is to work with your providers, whoever your partners might be. But it's such a great question because if we were to go back not too long ago, 10, 15 years ago, before the boom of e-commerce, before what we're seeing today, you had up until the 17th, 18th, maybe even the 19th of December, where you can actually get your products out and get them delivered to Johnny or to Mary, and to make sure that they had a good Christmas. But that's changed, and a lot of that. I mean, people focus on the evolution of e-commerce, but what you have to understand, what's also driving a lot of that is the fact that shipping used to be the shipper that was in control. Shipping, and when I get things, it's the consumer that's in control now. It's the consumer that's demanding from where they're buying from. When am I going to get it? How am I going to get it? Is it coming to my home? Is it going to the brick and mortar location? Because I want to come in and see it there. And that's driving that demand and that pressure, which to your point and Blake's point, Q5, you really need to start thinking about that up front. So, we're talking, if you don't have your game plan by US Thanksgiving, by Black Friday, if you don't know your timelines, everything else, you're not prepared for it, you might miss those deadlines that you need, because things have been pushed up from, December 17th to prior to the Black Friday. So it's critical that businesses, whether or not you're brick and mortar and you're waiting for inventory to come to you, or if you're trying to get it right to your consumers, that all of that is really pushed up front because of all these different pressures that we're feeling.
Okay, so none of us will look at you and blame you for the global supply chain issues just because you're UPS. We know that that's not your fault, nor is it your responsibility. However, because we are aware of looming challenges, what does that mean for timelines as far as retailers and e-commerce, websites that have that capacity to sell online? What should we be more acutely aware of when it comes to timelines? Because again, there is this looming challenge that may or may not fall on Canada, but we're here.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because the challenges and issues that I'll raise in a second, some of them are new, different. COVID obviously has brought on this nightmare in the supply chain world, right? I mean, you look at major ports around the world, and there's a lineup of, ships with cargo trying to get stuff unloaded or loaded, right? So there's a lot of challenges globally that way. But as far as how to address that, it goes back to something that we have been trying to instill in businesses, whether or not you're just starting off or you're a Fortune 500. Look at your supply chain. You have to map out your supply chain, because that really is going to tell you where you've got your challenges that you have to address. If you've got one supplier and only one supplier that's providing your either materials to do finish your product or your whole product, what happens if that supplier is not there tomorrow? Right? Then what do you do? Right? So, it really is understanding, where am I getting my finished goods or my materials to complete my goods? How is that moving? What are the challenges in those lanes today, if there is any challenges? What challenges could there be? If you're using ocean container to move some of your product, depending on the time of year and where it's coming from, you got to start worrying about weather issues, right? Well, in the ocean, yes, hurricanes, typhoons, things of that nature that can cause all those problems. So some of that's not new, but that's just being now, I guess, multiplied because of what we're seeing with COVID, right? So COVID has pushed this demand globally of people wanting things now, which is just being pushed downstream, and that's where we're seeing the bottlenecks and those problems. So I say all of this to basically sum it up in, you really need to look at your back end, which is, where am I getting everything from and how am I getting this to customers, to see where could there potentially be challenges for me to make sure I've got backup plans. So if I have to zig and zag, I can zig and zag, because if you don't have the ability to do that, you're going to hit a wall, and that's going to be a problem.
Okay, let's go from zigzag to, I'm trying to do a transition here, to cuts and clarity and color. And what are the four C's, Chow? This is your space, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chow Louis, the founder of Paris Jewelers. Now, I live with three ladies. My daughters are getting older, and they're always looking at jewelry these days. And a few months back, yeah, my life is expensive. A few months back, graduating and wanted some sort of ring or something, but stores were closed. I don't remember the exact timelines. We couldn't go into a storefront. And it blew her mind away that she could reach out to this place called Paris Jewelers, and someone was willing to do an online a consult. And what size is your finger? What color would it cut? Like, where did that idea come from, and how is that going for you, where you're replicating the the in-store experience online? How is that process going for you?
It's going great. So it's something that we did before, but we didn't do all the time. But, in March of 2020, we had to shift pretty quick. So I think it's actually giving us the opportunity. In our industry, in the jewelry industry, we're very much, see, touch, feel. People want to see it. But what's happening is, people are looking online, they're getting research, maybe we're having a consult and really understanding the customer's needs. Then if they want to go, either we can close it online with our virtual consultants, or we can send them into the store, make an appointment. But at that time in the store, they already trust our brand. We already know their wants and needs. So really what we're seeing is, if we can get them through that path to purchase, our conversion rate is going up and the customer is leaving with exactly what they want. So I feel like it is it's such a great tool, whether you want to focus on e-com or it's in store. It really it works really well together.
Fantastic. And at no point did I ever hear you say you want to close your stores and go online. There's this element of having both present at the exact same time. Now, how has that been from a leadership perspective, leading your organization to continue developing? Because you've gone from 1 to 2, now you're almost at 20 stores across the country. Fantastic. How are you able to manage now also focusing on your online presence?
I think we are really lucky where we've been focused on it probably for the last 10 years. I have to say I cannot take credit. I have people that are way smarter than me in place, but really what it is we're just bridging that communication, because what we're finding is the things that we do online, we have to be able to communicate them in store. I think that's been a shift for us, where communication is key, because this is what we know to be true. Customers have something that we don't have. They have choice. They can go anywhere. So what we've actually focused on in our brick and mortar stores is training, extensive training on product knowledge and in the experience, to ensure that when they get to know our brand online and they've fallen in love with our brand, we can continue that experience in the store. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges that we've really had to focus on, especially having 23 stores in 4 provinces. People tend to kind of do things in their own way per province. That's what I'm finding. So really streamlining that communication to make sure that what we're talking about online is what we're talking about on in store, and the experience is consistent.
Okay, so that brand experience that Doug was talking about earlier, you're trying to make sure that there's symmetry in store and online.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, Ilana, this is what I'm going to do. Are you ready, Ilana?
Sounds good.
I'm going to launch a business and I'm going to sell. I got to button this up. I'm going to sell bow ties. Okay. The best bow ties you'll ever see in your life. Purple ones with polka dots. Okay.
Love it.
So I got my website. How come nobody's coming to visit me? How come I'm not getting that traffic? Right. So I guess it's not enough for me to just open up a website. What do I do now?
Yeah, you gotta fish where the fish are. I think Paul really touched on it when he was talking about how consumers have so much choice, right? And they're gonna shop where they want to shop, how they want to shop, when they want to shop, and you gotta be present and be part of that path to purchase, right? So of course, there's some of the organic things you can do to boost your presence, like having a great website, making sure you're putting out content, but you also gotta pay to play a little bit here, and you want to be surfaced at the right time, at the right moment, in that right decision. And I think what I would actually encourage Canadian SMEs to do is think bigger than your neighborhood or your pocket that you might be used to selling in. I think the internet has opened access for consumers, but it's also opened up access for businesses. The international trade barriers are just so much lower now, making a lot more audience and potential customers available, right? So right now, only 10% of SMEs export, right? But we know that those who do are way more likely to scale, be successful, have more volume and long-term profitability. And we actually even see in the click demand, almost 40% of Canadian advertiser clicks come from abroad, right? So people are looking for Canadian businesses, and how do we get there? And let's say you're small and like shipping to Europe or shipping to Texas feels too much for you. Maybe what's outside of your current pocket, right? So even we worked with an entrepreneur called Peter Leywine. He owns a pen store in Yorkville for 30 years. And he was used to selling to the Toronto market, right? And on the first day of lockdown, it was his first day in 30 years of $0 in sales. And he went into a panic, obviously. And so what he did, he set up a store, he got on Shopify, and then within a few weeks, his online sales became 70% outside of Toronto and 30% outside of the States. He just didn't even know there were pen lovers that were interested in stuff outside of his regular pocket, right? So even if it's not, big as in other countries, what's big outside of your natural community? Because shoppers are going to look for what they want. And so I think that's a really interesting paradigm shift for a lot of SMBs, and particularly because demand is increasing all throughout this holiday. This is going to be the biggest, baddest, most mega holiday season we've ever seen online. And so it's really important to be present. And so there are a couple of tools at Google that are free that can help businesses kind of capture this. So the first one is called Market Finder. You can just Google Market Finder or marketfinder.thinkwithgoogle.com. And if you plug in your website, it'll show where click demand is coming from, right? So maybe you didn't even know that a ton of people in Quebec were looking for your stuff, but now you'll be able to see that, right? And it'll give you lots of tips and recommendations. Another one is called Grow My Store. And this is it actually looks at about 22 things on your website that make conversion better. So is it easy to navigate? do you have a return policy present? Is it mobile friendly? Like, do you have reviews? Like all these things, it'll at least give you the checklist. You can be like, oh, I should probably fix these things before we get into November. But it's like a quick tips and tricks that can be very helpful.
Thank you. I was just about to go to JP. Oh, there he is. He popped back. JP,
Yes.
here's the thing. I hear this question a lot. If I buy something online and they're using the chat bot, do you have a retail location? It's almost like people still feel a little bit that a validation that you are real because of the amount of scams that can happen online, you actually need a physical location or an address that says, no, I'm real. Here's my address. Oh, and you can actually come in and visit. It's almost like validation that you're real if you're online only. In your space, what trends are you seeing as far as retail locations being taken up from a rental perspective or even new build?
Oh, thank you for that question, and sorry again for the bad experience when it comes to the internet. So I guess the experience that we've been having when it comes to scams and rentals is that a lot of it is done physically, and then some of the I guess more online scams that we're seeing when it comes to trying to rent a place is usually done, before being able to validate someone's identity. So we haven't been using the chatbot because people can then take it offline from the platform that we're providing, and be able to basically go ahead with that scam. So what we did is we provided some sort of firewall within our website, which allow a certain customer experience and a certain customer process that basically validates identities and makes it much harder for random users basically to be able to connect without validating some of those processes. And when those processes are validated, we then know that these persons are who they are, and what they're saying is can actually be traced back to their identity.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit about what skyrent.ca does?
Yes. So Skyrent is what I would say the easiest way to describe it would be the Airbnb for long-term rentals. So you have an apartment that you're looking to rent for the long term, and usually you would go through a realtor or directly trying to go on the Craigslist of the world, which are really online billboards, and put your ads in there. So what we've done, and again, touching back to your initial question, is finding out a way to build the processes and a customer experience where you're connecting renters directly with the landlord, but with the extra trust process that is there that we've built. We're actually working with some of my fellow panelists here. Their firms are helping us basically increase the validity and the credibility of the users on the platform. So on Skyrent, you can find the properties, book meetings, book appointments, submit applications, and pay online, all on the site. And with the having the the validity to know that the people that are using the platform are actually real, they're who they are, and turning down the potential scam at a very high rate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, JP. Now, Blake, most people will know Facebook, and my advanced knowledge of Facebook, obviously I'm setting up a little bit here, is marketplace. Yay, I can sell my gadget and my widget on Facebook, right? And so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use Market Finder and grow my store. And I'm going to do what Doug and Chow do, and I'm going to use UPS. But what else does Facebook do? Obviously, you own Instagram. What else does Facebook do to help get the message out there for my product or service, other than straight line marketplace? What else do you do?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think complementary to Alana's comments, I think there's a lot of things that you can do both on a paid and organic side, and I'll focus on some of the organic solutions. I think the two big ones that I would call out in particular right now, especially for e-com and retail, would be shops. So Facebook and Instagram shops. That's taking a very Google-esque catalog manager system. So thinking about uploading products and services to be in a catalog manager, and then having the ability to showcase those in your instant, we call it instant storefront. So thinking about bringing your storefront to a digital spectrum. And that's a free solution. You can obviously put advertising behind that, but I highly recommend getting into the weeds of understanding the technology that can power both Facebook and Instagram shops, because it's a super powerful solution that obviously gives you a ton of recognition and exploration on our platforms. And then the other one that's thinking about kind of the commerce first strategy is around product tagging. So thinking about product tags in your Instagram posts, and you've got to have a commerce catalog enabled in order to do so. And that's just a perfect solution. And that's obviously where people are exploring. There's the Explore tab for shops now where you can drive directly to a website to make that purchase. But those are the two solutions I would say on the organic side. And then a few things I would also call out, in particular, like the Gen Z audience is obviously changing the dynamics of behaviors online. The one big thing, and I think you think about making sure that the consumer feels like you feel like a real business in front of the consumer, is thinking about influencers. And influencers don't need to be the big macro influencer like a J-Lo or a Khloe Kardashian. It can be a micro influencer just that believes in your brand. So partnering with those micro influencers to drive your business forward, both organically as well as from a paid, will tell that real story about the community you're building with your business. And I think that's more a vulnerable and real story that I think is necessary in today's marketplaces, especially from a marketing standpoint. So thinking like bigger, as Alana said, it's thinking bigger in many ways, not just from a technology front, but also a creative front. And again, I think that's a huge thing. I think especially with all the industry changes from a marketing landscape perspective, thing we say at Facebook is actually creative is the new targeting. You've got to get out with different creative. It's not going to be just that white background with a product shot that's going to drive your business forward. You've really got to tell a real story that is potentially more vulnerable than used to, because I think building online community is so important. So that's how I'd answer that one.
Thank you, Blake.
I'm in here out of turn, but I would really like +1 the storytelling, right? Like
Yes.
SMBs are so integral to our community. I've never been an SMB owner that doesn't have a great origin story, a great story about how they are committed to their community. I mean, Chow just mentioned a few that Paris does, you know, and people care. Like people will shop their values. I think like now more than ever, and especially Gen Z, people spend money with how their values align, right? And so if you can show what you stand for, I think you're going to build that community that's really going to be passionate about your brand.
I would also
anyone else thoughts on brand?
Because I think this is a super important moment, is entrepreneurs telling the story. Being the CEO behind the business goes a really long way. If you're hiding behind the technology or hiding behind the brand, you should be out there telling your story as the actual business owner. And we're finding that that is actually having more meaningful impact than even the micro influencer. You are the influencer for your business. So putting your name in front of it and being vulnerable and potentially video posts about the brand and why you stand for it has such a meaningful impact in that storytelling ability.
I second that. That's been my experience so far.
I mean, I've always been told for the longest time that it's, you know, it's not businesses buying from businesses, it's people buying from people, right? So, you know, absolutely. I mean, even on our end, on UPS, I mean, we don't go and talk about, here's what we do for small business. I mean, we do case studies from small businesses as far as what they're doing so they can share with their peers as well too, right? So I think a lot of it really goes back to what both Alana and Blake said, which Chow is doing as well. I mean, like, she's already doing. It's the experience. People want to know who I'm buying from, not just what I'm buying, right? So being able to have that story, the businesses we talk to that have done that, it's unbelievable how they're growing and the success that they're having.
Okay, so I'm going to stay on the Chow bandwagon and ask Doug this question. So here is Chow, where 23 retail locations, guys. That's phenomenal, right? how does she reproduce herself in all those stores then? And so scale it becomes a challenge when we're saying, okay, well, yes, I need to do the face, but how does she, Doug, your thoughts around that, what brand then means from an experiential versus an influential perspective? How would you wrestle with those two thoughts?
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is a couple things that putting the customer or the person, as Paul said, at the center of everything is key when we're looking at creating any experience, and remembering that. I think Chow, you said it really well, like that you're trying to make that journey between one and the other extraordinarily smooth. Like there's kind of not a gap between what you experience online and what you experience in the store. I think it comes down to, like, from a sales training perspective, from the technology that supports you perspective. That's super important. That again, that there's that consistency across the board. But the most important thing I think to remember is that people are shopping in different ways. When we look at what we've got from like, still a lot of people still shop brick and mortar retail, but their journey isn't just that. We tend to bucket people into, like, online shoppers and retail shoppers, but it's much more complicated than that. And we need to capture people in the individual moments that they're in. So with, if they're on Facebook or Google or, wherever they are, we need to support them in that moment, in that journey. And I love that we were talking about, like, having different creative, because you need to speak to them where they are at that time. And it's not just like a one size fits all thing anymore. So, being the tech guy in the room, I'm always like, make sure that technology that you have supports that you can be, as you see those changes in the market, as you see changes in behavior, or you're getting feedback, you're getting that real world feedback, like some of the other panelists were talking about earlier today. Test and learn, build, measure, learn, or whatever that is. You need to be able to pivot extraordinarily quickly across the board. It needs to be able to scale across 23 stores online within days. We saw that at the beginning of 2020 when COVID hit. Like, people were struggling to put banners saying, "Yeah, we're still open," or here's our stuff," because their technology didn't support them being able to put a banner up on their website, to inform people what was going on. So a lot of people had to really quickly pivot, and they weren't able to. So it's a combination of things. People first, always. And then having the right technologies to support behind the scenes to really enable that. I think those are key things. Again, I'm the CTO in the room, so I always lean towards the tech stuff. But
that's fantastic. So Chow, you didn't have to say anything. We're just going to speak on your behalf. This is a fantastic panel for you. But the same panel that Doug referred to earlier that happened, another thought that came out, and I was sharing this with Blake earlier, is the voice of truth is really what the customers want. Meaning their expectations should really drive our decisions. Alana said it this way, she said, fish where the fishes are, right? Something like that. I think she said it much better than I said it. But what has been your experience over the last little while as far as changing expectations in the marketplace, and what can we do to wrap ourselves around their voice of truth?
And was that question for me?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I think that Instagram and Facebook and social media has really given us a way to communicate with our customers on a different level. I think it's so important. I think that as an organization, we seek feedback. So we do focus groups with our employees and our managers very often, because I do not have the answers. Why would I? The most important person is the person that is dealing with the customers. When a customer leaves the store, they are not thinking about me. They're thinking about how they feel and how that person made them feel. So we do seek that a lot. We schedule it in. And, I think you've heard me say this: when it's written, it's real. So we schedule it in, we have written notes. And then when we go to make decisions, we use that data to drive our decisions. And also having, an e-com, it actually helps us, because there is a huge investment when it comes to launching new products in 23 stores. We do a lot of testing online first, take data from that. Where is it selling? What kind of customer it's selling to? And then we move it to the stores that we think it's going to work. So there's been a lot of benefits as well.
That's fantastic. And folks, for everyone listening in, we've aside from the anecdotal stories, opinions, and thoughts that have been shared, there have been some practical tools like Google Market Finder, Grow My Store. Blake referenced what Facebook can do for you outside of just marketplace. There, hopefully, while you're listening and you're googling those things right now, right, and you're getting into the weeds. But what we want to do as we wrap up is just provide everybody a final thought. As we wrap up. So, Paul, let's start with you. What would you say to people considering this concept?
Oh man, final thought. If I can just try to summarize two. One, and it's funny because it's the one word I heard Chow say several times when she first spoke, and she didn't say it this time, but she basically walked around it, and that is experience, right? It really does narrow it down to experience. And it depends on your business, right? People are concerned about, well, how do I compete with these big online retailers and actually get people to come into my storefront? Some people are looking at gamification. Some people are looking at ways of discounting, having it come in. But it all boils down to who you're trying to attract and how you can make sure that experience is better than they can get it anywhere else. And in Chow's experience, it looks like it's both. It's online and in store. But it's going to be different for all businesses. But I think it's the experience is what people want. They want to connect and have that experience. And then the last thing I just want to touch on, which obviously is a space that I'm in, is don't forget that back end. The 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 heartening thing I see way too often is businesses are starting up focus so much on their R&D, on their product, on their sales, on their marketing, and then all of a sudden they get their website up and running, and that first order comes in a shopping cart. They're all excited to high-fiving each other, and they're like, well, now what do we do? Now how do we get to the customer, right? And then you're in the back end scrambling, on your packaging and what carrier, what's the right one to use, and how do I manage returns, all that stuff. So if I can leave, with something I know well as a thought for everyone is that part you should be thinking about that just as you're thinking about your product, because the size of your product, what it's made of, how you're going to, all of that needs to tie into how you're going to ship it and get it to your customers as well. So that component on the back end, you need to be thinking about it day one in order to eliminate any challenges you might have at the end.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure Doug appreciates that comment about taking care of the back end and the underground things that most people don't manage. That's for sure. JP, final thoughts.
For me, I think the experience again is one thing that has been important for us. We've run through some issues when we've been trying to increase our the use of the website. But one thing that we really want to emphasize is just make it easy for the end customer, because if it's easy for them and they feel safe, then I think you'll be able to increase your business, and that's been the case for us.
That's fantastic. Easy and safe. Doug.
I think the people first thing we've talked about a lot, but having the right tooling to be able to deliver that experience is key. And one of the things that you can look at doing is you don't have to pick a one size fits all monolithic solution to do so. We've seen the Shopifys of the world where you can plug in these different pieces in the technical world, we call this the idea of headless, and we can actually push content out to different channels. And I think we might be able to get logistically get something to a client, but what happens when that isn't right for them? The shirt that I ordered is the wrong size. How do we get that back? There's new startups emerging around reverse logistics. Like there's a company based out of Toronto called Return Bear, for example, and what they do is they help you get your return handled easily by going to a Cadillac Fairview location. So I'm already in the mall, I've already got this thing here, I can actually return it from the mall. So again, it's that customer experience end to end, not just the excitement of, oh, I got my shirt, but like, what do I do now? How do I make it easy? And the tech has to be able to support that, and not trying to fit, have some tech and fit it the other way around.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. One of the Similar threads of almost every session that we've done has been focus on your core competency. And if you need expertise, go to an expert and let them be the expert. Right.
Absolutely.
So thank you for echoing that today. Blake, final thoughts.
Yeah, I'll be short and sweet. I think I've touched on a lot of like personality. I think is important to show up as the brand, but shoppers expect the in-store experience to deliver the efficiency of the online experience because the online world is really what's taken off. But you can't forget about this omni-channel experience because that personalized experience, both in-store and online, is so important to success. So I think you've got to play in both categories, and if you don't, you're going to be leaving a lot on the table.
Thank you. And folks, if he didn't sum it up perfectly right there, well, no, he did. Play in both arenas if possible. You will really one validates the other 100%. Alana and then Tao.
Yeah, I think, we gave a lot of advice today, and it can be overwhelming for an SMB. I think if I'm going to pare it down to something very simple, the last year and a half has been very volatile, but this is the new normal, right? We're not going back to whatever it was that was before. It's digital, it's here to stay, and it's also going to be up and down. But I've also never met anyone more resilient than an SMB owner. So I think I'm just gonna give some words of encouragement, more like, you can do it. It's overwhelming, but it's nothing you haven't faced before, right? And so I think it's like, you've got it handled. I think take it step by step. If you don't do everything, it will be fine. Just do your best. And I think like this is a week celebrating SMBs. I think it's like they're resilient and will like rise through holiday.
Thank you. And Chow.
It's been so great to be here. I've learned so much, but I think I'll just, I really resonated to something that Blake said, is just being the story of your brand. It's so important. We define culture at our company as who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And for us, we've been really focused on making sure that the story we tell online has to match in store, and it has to be authentic. So that's something that's really important. And the customer is expecting that same experience online as they are in store, and it has to be a focus, or else we will lose that customer. So I think it should be on everybody's minds.
Thank you, Chow. And Blake, one of the things you said earlier was about training. I assure you that's something that parachuters take seriously. Their training manual is this thick. It's incredible. The way that they try to make symmetry with all the experiences across their stores. Folks, thank you for making the time. And for all of you online listening in, I'm just going to volunteer everybody on the call. Reach out to them. If not them, somebody on their team will definitely be able to assist you with tools. I know that UPS actually has a booth in the expo right now. And if anyone else does, my apologies, which is top of mind right now is UPS. So if there are some needs that you have, please reach out to Paul and his team. They're at the expo right now. They're in a booth right now. Reach out to them. Alana, thank you once again for being here. I think what I appreciated most about what you were saying today is simply we heard from Alana, not necessarily the voice of Google, right? And so thank you for being you and being authentic. Blake, JP, we're going to have to hang out a little bit more often. It was fantastic meeting you today. And Doug as well. Ciao. Paul, thank you one and all. And folks, what's coming up next we have 2 sessions at 1:30. Check the schedule and we'll see you then. Thank you, everyone.